Episode 82. Pyramids of Mars. Not the Pyramids of Mars, just Pyramids of Mars. A quintessential, some would say iconic, episode from the early Tom Baker era. What's it about, dear?
Grammar's not their forte.
No, there's a lot of titles where I'm like, wait, does it have the in it? Or like, wait, how's it, like, is it this or this? And it's like, oh, god damn it, just fucking have proper naming conventions, please.
Mm-hmm. Alright, well, there's a pyramid, it's on Mars. Actually, it's a mountain with some trees, it's Jurassic Park, Side F, also known as Egypt. They're breaking into totally a pyramid and not at all styrofoam. And they break into this ancient wall thing and steal everything inside, except there's a green light. And then the dude just dies. Whoopsie. And then there goes the TARDIS. Sarah found a dress that the doctor's like, oh, Victoria used to wear that. Now I'm sad. And then the doctor's also apparently middle-aged now, so that's something. He's gonna get a Lambo at some point. Oh no. The TARDIS got shot by a rat, cow, anteater thing, and it shows up in the TARDIS, and only Sarah can see it, and she's like, ah! And he's like, no, you're crazy. But then they've now landed somewhere, and it's in Egypt at some point. I thought it was Egypt. It's actually Unit, but years ago, before everything was, like, built, because remember, there was a fire. Remember that thing they talked about?
There's a fire that burnt down the house that was originally there. Hey, they actually set it up.
I mean, they do. There's a man.
I mean, it's kind of super obvious that when they're like, hey, this is the house that was here before Unit was here. But wait, didn't that house burn down?
I just realized who our bad guy is. I forgot who he looks like. There's a man playing an organ, and he's now upset that someone came to say hello because they have questions. And he looks like Alex Kramer.
He really does. And we were even joking because he's wearing a fez. Yeah. He's wearing a fez. And we were like, okay, if he takes off the fez and he has like the sort of curly wild hair, then it's Alex. If he has sort of more styled, straighter, slicker hair, then it's Barry. And he took off the fez and it was like wild, like curly hair. We're like, oh my god, it is just Alex.
It is. It really, really is. Anyway, Alex is not allowing someone to come back into the building, at least until the professor returns. Also, the doctor is here and has found a door that is locked, and everyone is actually behind that door, but then when they realize that people are behind the door that's locked, that people shouldn't be back there, the doctor and Sarah run away. There's apparently a fucking doctor named Warlock, and he needs to be aware of this Egyptian guy who's mean. And no one knows that there's a second key to this wing, says the creepy old man. It'd make Fez guy very angry. But as we leave, we see a fucking coffin open and moving on its own. Too bad, while Alex and someone else argue, a man screams and dies in the other room. He was apparently strangled, though. And Alex is like, oh, hell yeah, I'm gonna pray about something and then pull a gun. It was very much so like, oh, I pray you get better, or I'm praying for good health, but not for you.
It was very much a, call an ambulance, but not for me.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
Uh-huh. So, the other dude runs away. And then Alex goes to awaken the mummy with his hypnotism scarab thing. And the doctor has taken away bowler cap dude as fast as possible. So now we have to tell Lawrence. So Sarah runs off and the doctor leaves bowler hat behind to run from Alex Kramer. And then a himbo mummy is now coming after Sarah while the doctor carries the gunshot bowler hat man back to the house to be saved. And then we reenact the fucking Lord of the Rings with Sarah for a bit. Alex hears it's literally just like the tree branch.
Well,
and oh my god.
Yeah, hiding under the giant tree branch root as like the ring wraiths are going over to chase Frodo and like it's standing above the root and you're looking around like, oh my god, is the mummy gonna see Sarah?
So Alex hears God speak to him and the mummy and him head home. And Alex prays to a sarcophagus, and the doctor doesn't want to call the police and says, like, listen, time travel, and don't mess with my things, says Scarborough dude. And then Professor Scarman apparently invented something not invented yet for years, but when showing it off, it breaks and explodes. And apparently they have gotten an SOS off of the thing because we use a more advanced machine to basically, like, hear the thing that the original machine was going to hear. And then the organ man is playing again, and Alex is, like, hanging out, playing the organ. He has multiple mummies now, and he basically says, hey, Set/Sutekh, their god, is to be worried about. So Alex then opens a portal through the sarcophagus, which lets someone come through while the doctor watches from afar, and it's Set. Set's a helper dude who is now hanging out and wants Alex to look directly at him. And he's like, oh, this is Set's servant. And then we kill Alex. And then the servant's like, let's kill everyone on Earth. And then that was the part.
Yep, the servant. So that character's called the servant. He is a servant of Set or Sutekh. If you're a big fan of Egyptology, this is going to be either weirdly fascinating to you or kind of annoying. So the face that appears to them in the TARDIS was meant to be like jackal-like, but like it's so vague looking and like it appears and disappears really quickly that like you can't really tell. It's like, was that a dog? Was that a fucking Borzoi face?
Yeah.
Like, it's really weird. So God, this episode. First of all, unlike other episodes that have had an organ-based type score, like the War Games did in certain scenes, Dudley Simpson took it upon himself and took the opportunity to perform on a nearby church organ himself. He was like, you know what? If we're going to have an organ for this, I want to fucking perform on an actual church organ. So
I just know how to do it,
Dudley
so
Simpson
fuck
there.
it, whatever.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
One of the more interesting things that I found out about this episode that I didn't know because I've never actually watched Queer as Folk. Extracts from this episode were used in Channel 4's 1999 series Queer as Folk, written by Russell T Davies, who you may know as the showrunner for the first 4 plus special seasons of the new series of Doctor Who when it came out. The program intercut the I Bring Sutekh's Gift of Death to All Humans scene at the end of the first episode with some of the most explicit gay sex ever seen on mainstream TV. It's fair to say that nobody working on Doctor Who in 1975 was expecting this.
Mm-hmm.
I just like to think about that. But yeah, this is one of those episodes where a lot is kind of set up, and it's very much a kind of world-building episode, and kind of an episode that I like to think its vision was a little bit bigger than its budget and technical ability, which you're going to see a lot of in this area, especially in the 80s, where it's like they have a really neat story, but it's clear they had to cut a lot of stuff or change some stuff purely because they just could not do the details. Some of the effects in this look fine. Some of them look very dated and cheesy, and some of them just look straight up bad.
Yeah. It was literally just like a dog, cow, anteater thing.
Yes. But yeah, this is very much that it's an interesting story in what it wants to talk about, but we'll continue though. What happens in part 2, dear?
Sorry, I'm trying to remember what animal Sutekh is. I believe he has a flamingo head, I want to say he's a flamingo.
I have no idea. I've never been an Egyptology kind of person.
That's
All I
fair.
know about Sutekh... Oh no, it says... Well, okay, this is the Doctor Who wiki, but it says the jackal.
Mhm.
So I think he's meant to be a jackal, but that might just be the head that he shows and has in this.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, so, like, the Sutekh's head in general is jackal-like. It's very long and narrow, but I think he's supposed to be like a bird.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm not gonna worry about that.
Yes. We'll talk about that more when we get to, like, part 4, because that's when we really need to talk about Egyptology.
Alright, so the dude turns into a weird-looking old man, who was one of the previous dudes who is now dead, and commands all the mummies around a bunch. They have generators apparently made out of various clay jars, and the sarcophagus is what threw off the TARDIS because it's a time-space tunnel for Sutekh / Set, which he sucks into, basically. And then the Doctor, like, throws something into it and saves himself, but he has a migraine, so, he just gotta lay down for a bit. It's fine. A random farmer is in the woods watching a mummy fuck around for a bit, and the Doctor, by the way, isn't waking up, so they go into a nearby priest hole, and the farmer just falls a little bit.
We're not joking, it's literally called a priest hole. I did make the joke that, Catholic priests, but they literally call it a priest hole.
Mm-hmm. He
or as I colloquially called it, a glory holy. Anyway, keep going.
I don't know how to after that. Anyway, he walked into
tell them what happens.
An invisible wall, and the farmer gets freaked out, runs away. The gunshot guy gets confronted by the fake Marcus / Warlock dude, Set's helper dude, but he's doing all these weird words. And all the humans in his new barrier are gonna die, but then a mummy walks in and a CD crashes, but also a shot man. The man who got shot originally is now killed, and then the Doctor is now coming to Set and apparently is very smart, but we need to reverse polarize that one scarab ring thing. Too bad fake dude came in and knows someone is hiding in the building and wants to kill them. The farmer comes up, fucking shoots him, does nothing, farmer gets chased. Doctor escapes their hidey hole, and they follow after the mummies before they come back down the hall again. The building is full of machinery, and it looks like they're kind of building a rocket to get Set out of Mars so that Horus can't fuck with them. That's basically... yeah. The professor is brought into the TARDIS, and he's like, whoa! And Sarah just wants to leave, and the Doctor's like, no, look, if we look into the future and see if we don't mess with it, it's all fucked up. Look at all this stock footage. It's all bad. So we go back and save the timeline. So, too bad the mummies are still chasing after that farmer in the woods. Set is very upset because he wants that fucking rocket to be built. Too bad Sarah has found the dead body of that one guy who got shot, and the Doctor fixes the machine. The Doctor wants to disconnect the brainwave, but he's worried that it might kill fake dude. Too bad the outside hunter farmer dude is caught by the mummies and squished. And then they switch the power on instead, and the mummies all come inside to forcibly order their Taco Bell while choking out Sarah.
Don't we just ordering the fucking Taco Bell?
Mm-hmm.
So I feel I want to get back real quick. I want
to just mention people should listen to the fucking commentary. It's great.
The commentary for this one is a good one to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
Well, except for the fact that it's all over the place because my fucking CD player is DVD player is dying again, which I'm really pissed off about because this is the second one I've had.
Mm-hmm.
And it's out of warranty now, so I can't get another one for free. But when Deer's kind of jokingly calling the mummies himbo mummies, that's not a joke. They are Dorito shaped. Like, they are big and buff. Big buff mummies. There is a specific scene in an episode in a part coming up that we'll talk about. When Deer talks about it, I'll just quickly say now, the Doctor, as a disguise, dresses up as the mummy, and Deer was like, that's very clearly not him, and I was like, actually, Tom Baker didn't want to dress in the mummy outfit, because he was like, no, fuck that, I'm not getting in that fucking thing, I'm a fucking actor. And the director was like, you're getting in that fucking thing, because this is going to be an authentic scene, and you're going to do what I fucking tell you to do. So, in the scene where Tom Baker is where the Doctor's sort of disguising himself as a mummy. That is actually Tom Baker in the outfit. The director forced him to get in there, which I like, and I appreciate that the director did that, because it would have been very easy to just make it a stunt person to do. And yeah, they could have just done that, but I appreciate more that it was the actual actor. Also, something I didn't realize, but this story kind of does made me realize the scenes in Sutekh's quote-unquote tomb in this story in Egypt in the very beginning of part 1 are kind of the first time this series has visited a country on Earth outside of the United Kingdom since, like, The Enemy of the World, which was a second Doctor story, if you remember that one. The one where there was a guy who looked exactly like the Doctor. So it's like nearly 10 years since they've had a story not based, like, in the UK when it's been on Earth, which is just, okay. I
guess.
Also, another thing you may have, another thing you may have started to pick up on is that the first 2 stories in this series, this is the first of 2 stories in this series where every single character in the story, spoiler, dies, except for the Doctor and the companion. Again, the mid-70s has a lot of weird horror and a lot of, like, really kind of dark and dour stories where it's just like a lot of people just die. But the horror in this kind of makes sense because this entire season, every story from it is basically a tribute to classic horror and science fiction films. This one was obviously a tribute to the mummy style films from the 30s and, like, 40s Hammer remakes. You have like the Invasion of the Body Snatchers type stuff. You have Planet of Evil, like classic sort of invisible monster type stuff. The next story, you have like more Invasion of the Body Snatchers type thing. You have a Frankenstein story coming up, and like you have like a Little Shop of Horrors / the original Thing style horror. Like it's kind of weird, but I kind of like that they had like a creative vision of what they wanted to do with this season, of like, hey, how about this season all the stories are kind of like this. It's not like a story arc where it's like, you know, they're all based on this one person doing all these things, but it's like a thematic arc of like they're all just based on these like classic horror style universal monsters, which I really like because I think it sets it apart from other seasons in its own way. But yeah, what happens in the next part, dear?
Okay, but you remember how we were all choking out Sarah for Taco Bell? Everyone's okay, actually, and the machine's broken now.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
Did we get the Taco Bell?
No. The doctor goes to head off and Sarah follows, even though Dangus stays behind, and now there's an old order to kill the doctor and Sarah, but they found the weird rocket thing, so they really want to go through the space-time portal to fuck with Set. But what if instead we just blow up the rocket with our blasting gel? And Scarborough is like, I'm sad. And then the doctor and Sarah head off to find the barrier, and we need to find the door now. The door is, of course, a fucking jar. So we use our magic screwdriver on it, and it makes some bad noises, and the wall's gone. Too bad Set is like, bro, I can see you fucking with it, and, you know, stop it. So they pull out a water bottle from inside, and it's a mechanism thing, which the doctor then pockets. Sarah and the doctor go back to that farmer's house, find the explosives, look around for a while. While back home, Scarface has an entirely unwrapped a mummy to its wire frame. Sarah at one point throws some fucking explosives at the doctor. He's having a bad time. Too bad fake Scarborough is tracking down Sarah and the doctor now, and he almost walks into his brother's room and goes, please, we should go to therapy. He almost kind of gets through to him, but then he's like, show me where that fucking alien is. Cut to the doctor and Sarah preparing to try to blow up the pyramid, and they have no detonator or fuses. Too bad Scarborough is now literally dead in the house, and his fake brother is alive. The bindings are made to literally stop all corrosion, so we are gonna put it on the doctor. And then the mummies on the side of the house are now carrying a fucking warhead. By the way, so the doctor's dressed up, and Sarah has a fucking gun, and everything is ready, so these coordinates So take these coordinates to fire on the warhead, and the doctor is ready to walk the explosives up while Sarah has a fucking gun. Fake dude gives the doctor the coordinate thing, and off we go. So Sarah shoots the explosives, and Set just kind of stops it with space-time. And the doctor wants to go for the time-space thingy, but what's-his-face is there because we can't keep the explosion in forever. So the doctor goes off to time-spacey explosion, whatever, while the explosions are removed from the area. So it's time to go say hello to Set on Mars, and he's just hanging out. But it does break the concentration that he has, and the pyramid goes boom. But he's also very angry and wants to kill the doctor. That's it.
Yeah. He is, yeah. Very, very angry.
Mm-hmm.
So something of this era that is, in terms of productions, is that episode quality kind of depends on the director a lot more in this one. Especially this director, Patty Russell, who I think was a really good director for Doctor Who. She always said that her job was to essentially fill in the gaps. Unfortunately, quite a number of scripts in this early era have kind of not much characterization in it. So what she did was she wanted to hire good actors who could flesh it out, basically take nothing and turn it into something, which is what she did with hiring certain actors to be, the Scarman and everything with the way he acts, and the servant actor who was the dead man come back to life. But on top of that, you have a lot of little scenes between Sarah and the Doctor. Some of them are actually improvised between just Tom Baker and Elizabeth Sladen because, they have such a good relationship and they just were like, fuck it, let's just do what we want. Like, there's a scene where the Doctor and Sarah calmly sort of just turn in unison to walk out of sight of a mummy as it's turning to face them. And that's like kind of just a gag that the two of them just thought up themselves and did it without even clearing it with the director, because it was like inspired by like a Marx Brother bit that they both liked, and like they were just like, hey, how about we do this? That'd be funny. It's pretty neat. But also there is a neat moment that I do love in this episode that you kind of glossed over, where they're getting the explosive and the Doctor's like, oh, it's that container up there, and Sarah's like, this one, catch, throws the container, and the Doctor's just like terrified catching it, just like, whoa. And she's like, what? And he's like, it's very unstable.
Mm-hmm.
A slightest sneeze could set it off. And she just goes, well, then don't sneeze. He's like, oh, are there any detonators? It's great. It's great. The little characterization like that is stuff that I really love from this season. This sort of early era. Which it does make this era kind of still watchable for me. There are a lot of episodes, and rewatching a lot of this, I'm realizing I'm not as much a fan of the Philip Hinchcliffe sort of era as a lot of people tend to be. I find some of it is incredibly slow and kind of meandering, and some of it does veer on caveman politics, unfortunately. But that's the unfortunate scale. Also, the original script for this was completely fucking different. I wouldn't be surprised if Big Finish have somehow surfaced the old script and have made, or are planning to make a Lost series audio play based on it, like they've been doing with season 12 scripts. But the original script was about the Doctor and the companion attending a conference on food reserves at the British Museum, and they were going to visit the Brigadier who was there, and a professor and a doctor, and they were like talking about a grain that could flourish even on the surface of the moon that would solve the world's hunger problems. But then the conference would be attacked by crocodile-like Egyptian god Sutekh and his army of mummies. Not Sobek, Sebek. Sebek and his master Seth are aliens who came to Earth millennia ago intent on conquest, but were placed in suspended animation via a powerful artifact called the Eye, wielded by Horus, another of their kind. And basically, in turn, the world's gonna get destroyed. We have to take control of this. Ridiculous kind of shit. Instead, we got a little bit still kind of ridiculous, and the scope is the stakes are pretty big, but it's very small story. Like they're small characters. It's basically set in this house and Mars. But it's a small scale story with big stakes, which is what this era is kind of very much known for. And it sets up a lot in terms of something that is very popular and comes back very much, which is Sutekh and the Osirans. More so basically just Sutekh. But the Osirans as it is, which, yes, if you've picked it up on it, the episode is implying that Egyptian gods were actually aliens, a race called the Osirans, and Sutekh, the god of death, was, a criminal essentially amongst them. So they locked him up on Mars and have now he's trying to escape through humanity letting him free, which that's not a good thing, so we got to stop him. But yeah, this Sutekh comes back a lot, and he's I wouldn't say he's a very popular sort of villain, but he's one of the more memorable ones. Like this episode especially is one of, like, it was chosen to represent the early Tom Baker era at the 40th anniversary, I believe, and the 50th anniversary sort of thing where they were picking episodes to like show people. It's like this was one that kind of encapsulates this era, which I think is neat and makes sense. But personally, I don't really care about Sutekh. But what happens in the next part, dear?
Well, it's the last part, thankfully, so everyone's dead. Actually, no, it's not time for that yet. Who are you? I want to pick a fight with you. I want to pick how you die since you fucked up my life, Doctor. And he's like, all right, let me just retrieve all the data about Gallifrey and learn about you instantly. And the Doctor really doesn't want to listen to Set, but Fake Dude calls in going, hey, we found Sarah. And they want to kill Sarah, but the Doctor's like, no. And then Set thinks a bunch about the TARDIS and Sarah for a bit before some strings pull the key to the TARDIS away from the Doctor and send it back through the sarcophagus. The Doctor can apparently control people, and Set is now controlling his mind, and they can send the Doctor back through, and he is possessed. But let's take the TARDIS and kill the Doctor when we reach Mars. Back into the TARDIS, fly to Mars, off to Mars, woohoo! Fake Dude walks out, he's like, and now we kill the Doctor. And the Doctor's like, he is dead. No, he's not, actually. Let's go save the world. Fake Dude is headed towards the center thing to go free Set, and there's too many doors and buttons to get through. Well, Fake Dude is faced with a sliding puzzle, and the Doctor comes up to the sliding puzzle afterwards, and the floor is full of explosives, and they just kind of solve it. And they also solve the next puzzle, but Sarah gets fucking captured. The Doctor is trying to get Sarah out, but then Horace shows up and goes, hey, pick your fate, and everything is okay now, and now we run off, while the Fake Dude is destroying the Eye of Horus Gym thing. But Horace is a mummy here to fight with the other mummy, because, the servant then destroys the eye, and then he dies on the floor, so Set won, right? While everyone fucking runs for the TARDIS, they go back to Earth in a weird box, while Set can move around again. Time-space sarcophagus lights up, lets Set get through, and he's like, wait, no, because it's now a temporal trap! He's now going to be stuck in time forever just to die. And then the time from Earth to Mars was enough, apparently, to keep him there for like 2 minutes, because, radio transmission time. But oops, the Doctor accidentally set the building on fire, and they leave, and that's it.
Oops.
Whoopsie.
So, real quick. So, the way they heavily imply that Sutekh's dead. Like, he basically, it's that sort of gag of like, he's trying to run towards the end of the corridor, but like, as he's running, we're extending the corridor so he can never get to the end. It's essentially that, but like, time version of that. And they kind of do a really decent visual representation of it, in my opinion. But, I looked into it because I was like, I know there is stuff with Sutekh that is technically set after this and is a sequel to it, because a lot of extended media Sutekh stuff is essentially Sutekh trying to get revenge on the Doctor, which is a lot of reoccurring villains that are like single people. supposedly, from what I can tell, what happens to state that he survives is that he essentially sidesteps at the last second to get out of the way. So, here, I'll read exactly what the wiki says. However, Sutekh survived by, quote, stepping sideways at the last moment, remaining trapped in a sort of limbo state in the void, alive and unaging, but once again unable to move, let alone leave. However, a fragment of Sutekh's mind, whom he had planted in the biodata of his son Anubis, before his imprisonment managed to take over Anubis's body and put into motion a plan to free Sutekh and re-emerge with him to recover his original body. It is bonkers. And like, I would say even for Doctor Who standard, this is clearly like they were bending over backwards just to get this character back. But, like, even Doctor Who doesn't, like, go anywhere near this sort of shit. Like, they have some goofy shit with, like, how the Master constantly kept escaping situations where it's very clear that he couldn't.
That's fine. He literally just stepped out of the way.
Yeah, but this is literally, like, it's like, it's not a literal, like, stepping to the side at the start, but it's like, he kind of... I guess it kind of is literally stepping to the side, because it's like, instead of remaining in that vortex that was going from Mars to Earth, he kind of stepped out of it at the last minute so he would be in nothing and just be there instead of being dead in that vortex, which is so dumb. But yeah, that's how Sutekh survives. Which, although they do make something interesting out of it, where apparently, like, whilst in the void, he reluctantly struck bargains with many of the other horrors that were banished there to have them follow him into the universe, which he was more tethered to than they were, since he actually belonged in our universe. So it's like, okay, so it's like Sutekh's back, and he's bringing his friends with him. So it's like, okay, you're having goofy shit, but like you're having fun with it. I will state as well, this is in a comic where they state explicitly how he comes back. I believe in other stuff, they kind of just don't talk about it that much. They also say that, like, oh, his body was what was destroyed, but not his consciousness. His consciousness, because he's technically a god, his consciousness survived and found another way to come back, essentially. Which, personally, I think is a lot better than he stepped to the side at the last second. But yeah, that's Sutekh. Not the biggest fan of him. I feel maybe if they brought him back in the new season, I would be legitimately excited, because they could do some interesting stuff, especially with current day technology. Although I don't trust current writers and showrunners. But another incredibly important thing that we have to bring up, just to remind everyone that it exists, and also provide more evidence. So when we eventually get to Mordrin Undead, I can talk about this more explicitly. But the unit dating controversy, for those unfamiliar, the unit dating controversy is a controversy in which, during the 70s, during the Third Doctor's era, script editor Terrence Dicks avoided putting dates on any script, saying, okay, well, this is set in this time at this year, because he wanted to make it vague, and he wanted to make it just say, well, it's set in the future. It was kind of basically assumed that everything in the 70s was set in the 80s. But that created a problem when future writers came in, and sometimes writers at the time came in, and wrote dates that didn't line up with that. For example, this one here, Sarah very clearly states in this that she is from a certain time. She says she's from 1980. And it's like, okay, so it is the 80s. But then there are future episodes where it's like, oh, I retired from UNIT in 1970s. And it's like, wait, how did you retire in the 70s when UNIT didn't exist till the 80s? So that's an entire thing that we'll eventually get to in about a year's time. But just to keep it in your mind, yes, they do actually make a point several times that Sarah is from 1980s in this, and it's kind of hilarious the way that they deal with all of this. But yeah, that's the last thing I wanted to say about this. The only other thing I can probably just mention is that a lot of scenes were deleted from the final broadcast because they shot way too much. The model shot of the TARDIS landing in a landscape that was barren. An alternate 1980s Earth was meant to be used, but they decided viewers would feel it more impactful if the first reaction was just Sarah's base reacting to it, which I think, yes, was a good idea. Stuff materializing and moving around, the director was like, nope, this is slow, this is boring, this doesn't work, fuck it, go away. And also, weirdly enough, this is also one of the stories where Sarah is the only female character in this. It was the same with the Sontaran Experiment, Revenge of the Cybermen, and Planet of Evil, where there's only one female character and it's a companion. It's kind of weird that it's this year and the previous year that have this weird problem where it's like they just don't want to write female characters, and it's not entirely Terry Nation's fault because he kind of infamously just didn't write female characters a lot. He just either forgot or just didn't want to. But yeah, it's kind of annoying, especially in a story like this, where it's like, in this story I understand because it's a very small story. There's like a very small amount of characters, but it's like, come on. There's only 2 more stories, I believe, where this happens though. Later 70s and into the 80s, they actually get a lot more gender diverse and have more female characters in different roles, which is good. But yeah, that's Pyramids of Mars. What do you think, dear?
Like a 4, honestly. I was kind of bored.
So like, even though it's Alex's debut in Doctor Who,
yes.
it's a 4.
Yes, I think you and I making fun of it made me enjoy it more than actually just watching it. So,
true.
Yes, a 4.
That's fair. Yeah, I don't disagree. I feel like this story is the idea and the concept I really like. The execution is almost there, but it feels like it's... You know what it feels like? It feels like a... You know how the new series of Doctor Who, each episode is like 45 minutes to 50 minutes? Like it's roughly an hour long. It feels like a new series episode of Doctor Who, but kind of stretched out to 4 episodes. But it's stretched, like, that only stretches it like an extra half an hour, essentially. But it's like, it's enough to make it feel like it's like, what are we really doing right now? Like, yeah. It feels like you could have done something a little bit different or had a bit more impact, but it's like this is the little episode that tried. It's not terrible, but it's like, I've watched it. I don't really need to watch it again.
Yeah.
Although Sarah does get her gun license in this, and I will admit, I do like the fact that Sarah is in a fucking like pure white long dress with a fucking hunting rifle. I love it.
Like I said, there's a lot of parts that I'm just like, I like this specifically, but as a whole, I'm just like, no. Yep. So.
Yeah, I'm kind of like that with this, except I wouldn't say no. For me, this, I'm more like, there are parts of this I like, parts of it I really like, parts of it I'm but overall I'm just like, I'll rewatch it, but I'm not gonna choose to. Like, if someone asked me, like, what episode from this season I'd want to rewatch, I would not say this one. But anyway, that's Pyramids of Mars. Next episode, The Android Invasion. It's there's an invasion, dear, of Android.
Shocking.
Where are they invading? Why are they invading? Are they actually invading? Who knows? I do.
I don't.
And anyone who's watched the episode or read ahead knows.
I don't.
What I will tell you is that it was actually directed by Barry Letts, who was the producer of the third Doctor's Era and written by Terry Nation. So it's an interesting one indeed. Anything else you want to add, dear?
Fuck no.
Android Invasion! The Android Invasion. Sorry, I forgot the. See you next episode, everybody. Goodbye.
Goodbye.